What's up, everybody? Good to see you all. I want to talk about a particular sound I was just using there. And it's something that people don't usually use. It's more because it's it's an unused mode of the melodic minor scale. I say it's unused. It used to be used in jazz a lot back in the 80s, but I don't hear people use it that much. And it's at Dorian flat 2. But I'm actually using it as a dominant sound. When I say dominant, I mean I'm using it on a dominant 7th chord. So I'm playing this kind of a sound, which would be B flat minor over C. It's a sus4 flat 9 sound. Now, the Dorian flat 2 sound is kind of a misnomer because it's really used for, best used, I think, as a dominant sound. So I played it like this. So I'm holding it. I've got a Native Instruments pad here, string pad. Great sound. Then resolving it to the So I'm doing I just did kind of, on the 1 chord, I did Lydian and Ionian. But if I'm playing lines, though, if I'm improvising, so I'm playing, and then, it's a cool sound. So, there's your sound, and then but I'm thinking really G minor, add 9 to B flat minor, add 9. You could do A minor, add 9 on the F chord, right? Not as good of a sound, though. Not as good as this sound. So that's a sound for you there, Dorian Flat 2. It's the most underused sound from the melodic minor scale. It can be used for composing, can be used for improvising, but it should be used, period. Typically, the kind of voicings that you hear are sounds like that. That would be this, you'd be using like D flat Lydian augmented over C. Or I'm doing over B. So I'll use D flat Lydian augmented over C. Right? Or you could do D flat major 7 flat 5 over C. Easier to finger like that. Harry asks, I know you have all the libraries, but what's your favorite string pads? String pads, that's really hard to say, Harry, because there are so many different possibilities. If you start getting into analog string pads, I have Omnisphere, which has an incredible amount of pads that all sound great for different things. A string sound, orchestral string sound, I like Albion 1, like Chris says right there. It's got a really full mid-range. It sounds great. It's great for doing videos. Albion 2 sounds really good. There's a lot of viable patches in that as well. The chamber strings of Spitfire Audio are good, but I think that the strings that actually come with the orchestral string, the green one, I'm not sure what the name of that one is, I don't care for that much. And even in the chamber strings, it seems like some of the lighter notes have some intonation problems. I don't think that they tune that well. But it really depends on the passage. I've got Cinestrings that are good for some things. I have the East-West strings that are good for some things. The problem is when you start blending libraries like that, they're all recorded in different rooms. They're recorded with different techniques. And they're good. It's not like you're going to use the viola section out of your East-West sounds, and then you're going to use the first violins from Spitfire, and then you're going to use the cellos from, Cinestrings or something, Cinesamples. You're not going to do that. It would sound odd because they're all in different rooms. Better to use individual patches and put them on separate tracks, though, if you're going to do that, instead of playing in the sounds like this. When I'm playing sounds like this, you tend to play things that fall under your hands. Now, if you can get things that fall under your hands that sound good, well, that's good too, right? But for the proper voice leading that you want to have, you probably cannot do that unless you're Bach, but do that by playing all by yourself. So you want to put each of those parts, you want to write it, have each part on a separate track, and then play them separately. Pat says, otherwise Spitfire has a new free string sound from Labs. You're looking for something that's cheap, not one that came with your DAW. It might be a good alternative. A good suggestion, Pat. Thank you for that. I do like the Spitfire libraries. The first one that I bought was Albion 1, and it sounds great. It's hard to get a lot of variation in these string libraries. If you change, the thing that counts the most in them, probably beyond the ensemble, is the room that you're in, okay? Because a lot of the sound comes from the distant mic, the different mic trees that are available. So Spitfire comes with four different sounds, 4 different possible blends, close mics and distant mics, and you can get a lot of variance from it. I have tried the Hans Zimmer strings, Chris. They are really, to me, way over the top. I need to play with them more, but I think that they just don't sound realistic. And not realistic can be cool, But in this case, I'm not sure that it really is. It's a massively big library that takes up so much space. I mean, I want to say I don't know how many hundreds of gigs, but it's interesting. I've read some people online. I know some people that downloaded it that were not nuts about it too, and I wasn't that nuts about it when I checked it out. But that being said, I haven't checked it out enough. I probably want to, I'm going to be doing some more orchestral videos where I will try the Hans Zimmer strings out. And I do want to do some demos of some libraries for people. A lot of people ask about that. I think it would be worth it. I'm doing some amplifier demos. I just finished another amp demo. These are things that I think are really informative. I'm not going to base my channel around these things, but I want my channel to be a resource for things like that as well, because there's a lot of you go to YouTube and you try to find sounds, you try and find demos of things, and very few people have great demos. Spitfire Audio happens to have really good demos of things, so that's not one of the companies that I would say. But there's a lot of guitar companies, a lot of amplifier companies. You're not going to see comparisons on an amplifier company YouTube channel between their amp and another amp of the same genre. I just did a thing with Rhett where we compared a Vox AC30 with a Morgan AC20, and they're very different amps, even though the AC20 is supposed to be a low-powered version of it. Now, the fact that I have the ability to have a nice Neve mic pre's and the same microphones to put them on the cabinets, run no EQ, and make a real comparison between them is extremely helpful. And the same thing goes with a lot of synth patches, because there's a lot of things that a lot of sounds, for example, Omnisphere that I was talking about, there are so many patches in it, thousands of patches in it. Just to go through the analog pads, it takes you hours. That's without even doing anything to them. And the thing about that I really like about Spectrasonics, that company, is that they're super thorough. They almost have too many different possibilities. You know, if you have Trilogy, which is the bass program, if you have the drum one, which is what is the drum one? I have that. I've used that for years. You've got Keyscape, which is a keyboard one. You have Omnisphere, which used to be Atmosphere, which I bought on a whim back in around 2001 when they first came out, because they had a picture of clouds and it said the ultimate plugin for pads, you know, with 3,000 sounds or something like that. I said, well, I'm buying that. Whatever that is, I'm buying it. They just literally, they had a picture of clouds. And to me, clouds and pads are the same thing. You know, pad is a sound cloud. And I was not disappointed with it. What is the drum one that Spectrasonics makes? Come on, somebody help me out. Aaron, are you in there? I'm not sure why I don't remember that. I've used it for you, probably because I'm not using it all the time. Okay, all right. If you guys aren't going to be of any help here, I'm going to have to look it up. Spectrasonics. Oh, hold on. I can't do that live stream thing there. Okay. Somebody is going to help me out there with Spectrasonics. I know they are. What's their drum program? Okay. Somebody's going to put it in the chat here. Rick, do you think you could answer this for me? You wrote a song in E, and the solo you wrote by ear seems to follow the scale. D, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C. So we've got E, F sharp, G sharp, A, right? So that's beginning of E major. B, C, so you got the flat 6 in there. D, you got flat 6, flat 7. Can't quite figure out. Stylus, thank you, Monty. My God. It took that long? Stylus. Why can't I remember Stylus? That's really weird. I'm concerned now. I've been using Stylus for years. One of the only problems with Stylus, it's a killer plugin, but they've never updated it. They had a couple Abe Laboriel Jr. did some patches. They have a couple plugin sets that they came out with, or patch DVDs they came out with 12 years ago or something, and they've never really done anything with it. So that scale that you're talking about has the flat 6 and flat 7. Anyone know what scale has flat 6 and flat 7 in it? It's not a mode of the major scale. Right? So you got it's got Mixolydian, right? That would be Mixolydian, but if I go, it's Mixolydian flat 6. Mixolydian, wait, it's E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B. Yeah, that's what it is. C, D, E. Yeah, that's what I did. A, B, C, D, E. Yeah, Mixolydian flat 6. I know you wrote it. I figured that out, Pat. It was confusing. I have a Instagram video with a Mixolydian flat 6 a piece on it. That's my favorite piece out of. I did a video of where I wrote a piece that went through all the modes of the melodic minor scale, and I think Mixolydian flat 6 was my favorite part of the entire thing. Harry, the last AB comparison video is excellent. Love to see mic pre comparisons, compression comparisons. Your favorite mic pre's match with those? Yes. Favorite tracking chains for rock? I will absolutely do that. I think that this is important, having a resource with that. I know that my channel gets kind of sprawling. I did the amp video, but since that was what I call a slow burn video, it's a video for people as a reference video that will discover it over time. It's not meant to be a main video on my channel, but I want it to be a video on my channel. I want to have a category of these things where I do amplifier demos, keyboard demos. I'm going to do a thing with vintage keyboards. I actually released a second video. I did a live stream on the same day that I put that amplifier video out. I did two because, like I said, I felt that was that's a video, more of a historic video, a historic reference video. Chris asks what I feel about sub-kick mics, and that's a great question. I'll tell you how I feel. I don't like them. I tell you why I don't like them. Because I have a sample of a sub-kick. They have no tone to them. They just have the bottom end. And I have a sample that I can put in that doesn't sound any different than any time I ever record my sub-kick. Back in the old days, we used to take a woofer from a Yamaha NS10. You hang it up in front of a kick drum, and you turn it into a microphone. And that's kind of where that came from. And people realized that a microphone with a huge diaphragm like that gets a tremendous amount of low end. But it doesn't really get any defined top end. So you can simply put in a sample, and I don't think it's worth recording. Unless you're doing something to tape and you want to capture it like that, then it is worth recording. But when I pick a kick out mic, I want something that can stand on its own and has tone. So I would, that's why I like things like a Neumann 47 FET or a AKG D12, AKG D25, AKG D30, AKG D36, a Shure Beta 52. Those are great mics for the outside of the kick drum, just like the inside of the kick drum. I like an RE20. I like a Sennheiser 421. I like, for certain things, I like a D112. It's very scooped in the mid-range. Good for metal, though. There are many mics that work on the inside of the kick. RE20 is one of my favorites, though. The Electro Voice RE20. It's probably my favorite kick-in mic. Not necessarily my favorite kick-out mic. What I like about it, it's got great articulation to it because it's got great top end since it's a broadcast mic. and it's got great bottom end. And another broadcast mic that would work inside the kick drum is an SM7, because that is the other common broadcast mic. But I feel like the RE20 has a little bit more oomph to it. You don't have to be quite as, the proximity effect seems to be greater. Proximity effect means that the closer you get to the sound source, the more bottom end it gets, okay? Mics that have a proximity effect, dynamic mics that have a proximity effect, certain ones have it more. I mean, if you go to a SM57, you have to really eat the mic for it to get a lot of bottom end. Whereas an RE20, you don't have to be as close. Yet, I prefer an SM7 as a vocal mic over an RE20 by a little bit. But if a broadcast mic, I think they're pretty equal. But for a kick drum mic, I prefer the Electro Voice RE20. I think it's my favorite kick-in mic, and it has been for years. Although, like I said, with certain types of rock, I like a Sennheiser 421. So there you go, which can be used on anything. It's interesting because we were having this discussion the other day. I forget who it was with. Maybe Rhett was here, or maybe I can't remember who was here, but we were talking about the 421. And 421 can be a vocal mic. It can be used for anything. Somebody said, oh, that's a tom mic. Yeah, a 421 is great for toms. But if you look at old recordings, jazz recordings, anything, you'll see 421s on everything, on pianos. Look at old Oscar Peterson videos from the 60s. Look at Wes Montgomery videos. There's the one live video where he's playing with this group from Amsterdam. They have a tan-colored or white Sennheiser 421 on the piano. They've got one on Wes's guitar. They have it on the kick drum. Harry says Tom York used an RE20. He does in their basement video, and it does have the best proximity effect. Harry, for your voiceover friends, I totally agree with that, and I've recorded them many times, many times. I will do a video. That would be a great video, because I just bought a brand new SM7, because the old one, this artist I work with, she chewed the foam. I told her to eat the mic, and she actually took me literally and chewed up the windscreen on it. You know, goes over it. She must have been spitting it out or something. It just was all mangled. Anyways, so Michael says, I'm working with a vocalist who has written his own songs, but when recording never sings them the same way. His timing is non-existent. Can't sing or scratch vocal either. How can you help? Oh man, I've been there before. I know a specific person that had the same thing. This actually went beyond his singing. He could never sing the same part twice. He couldn't play the same guitar part twice either. I don't know. It drove me nuts. And the only thing you can do is basically piece together a part and move it around. Unfortunately, there's nothing, some people just don't have a sense of time feel. They just cannot keep things in time. And it doesn't matter how much they practice with the metronome, they just have no feel. I can't explain it. You can see, I've got a good friend that he has the same thing, where I saw him play a gig, I don't know, a few months ago, and his time feel is just terrible. Absolutely terrible. And there's other people that have such a good time feel that anything they play, doesn't matter if they play wrong notes all over the place when they're soloing, it sounds great. But Monty is correct. You have to cut and paste the stuff and move it around. My God, have I done that. There's some people are just impossible to fix. You can move stuff around, you can tune it, whatever. You're getting paid to do a gig. You try to make them sound good. I've had people that were on major labels I worked with this one kid. His name was Joey. This is about 10 years ago. And he was on a major label. And his time was okay, but his voice was so bad. I tell you though, when you tuned it, it sounded great. But he absolutely would sing these atonal lines, but he'd be kind of near the pitch. But there's other people I worked with that no matter what you did, you could not get them in the pocket, no matter how much you move their vocals. You just can't move stuff in the pocket. You can't. I don't care how good you are in Pro Tools. There's nothing that you can do that you can fix errant beats, but you can't change someone's time feel if it really is bad, especially with a vocal, because you have a lot of syllables that are connected and you just can't cut them up without hearing artifacts from it. So Melodyne is amazing, Monty, but you still get those artifacts. But it is amazing. It saved a lot of sessions, but honestly, it's kind of been the death knell of the music industry, because anybody can sound fairly halfway decent with it. You sat with him for an hour once playing dance tracks and you couldn't find the one. I know. His middle name is Where Is One, right? My God. I mean, that is honestly the worst. It boggles my mind. Pat says, kind of sad that you've got kids on major labels that can't sing on pitch while you've got super talented folks out there struggling to be heard. I know. And it's interesting because this kid was on a label, and the A&R guy that got assigned to it after it was signed by one of the owners of the label. And then the A&R guy hired me to try and produce the record. And I wrote songs with him. He liked the songs, right? He had never heard this kid. He didn't know how much I had to do to fix his vocals. So he shows up down here, the head of A&R at this label. This is a guy that had a #1 song, a #1 pop song as a writer. And it was #1 at the time. So he had the #1 song in the country. He's down here sitting in the control room. And this kid Joey goes in and sings. And it is so out of tune, he looks at me and he says, Is his singing always this bad? And I said, no, it's actually way worse normally. You're hitting him on a good day. And he said, oh, how have you been fixing it? I said, oh, it takes a lot of effort. This is before Melodyne, really. Before this is pre-Melodyne, so it had to be fixed in Auto-Tune. And one of the things with the early versions of Auto-Tune is that you get a lot of really bad artifacts, because I believe that the way they used to do pitch change is if the pitch was flat, they'd actually change the they would change the if you're recording at 44.1, they would speed it up, basically, right? The sample rate. And if it was flat, or if it was sharp, they would slow it down, and you'd get a lot of different artifact anomalies, especially in the upper mid range, that would kill your ears. I called it the 3.8K whistle in Pro Tools, and they've pretty much done away with a lot of that. You don't hear that as much, but man, that was the worst. Melodyne is a lot better for that. Harry, if you don't use it for note correction, Melodyne can have a magical ability to help a vocal sit out front of the mix in a cool way. That's true. Zach, you talk quite a bit about modes where I will stick to the key, line 7 particular row of the song, and apply the chord tones to give you the alterations, and don't think of modes. It all depends on how your brain works. You can be on a dominant chord, right? If I think of an A7 chord, and I can say, I think the sharp 9, flat 9, sharp 5, flat 5. I just know where those notes are, right? I just know where those notes are all over the neck. I'm not thinking of the scale. I just hear those alterations. So that is really so that's really another way of thinking of it. You don't have to think of the scales. If your brain works that way and you know your instrument, no matter, obviously it's easier on keyboard to know where those notes are, but it's good to know the scales so that you can, get into some more complex lines. Chris says, Dithering algorithms are a lot better to avoid those truncation artifacts these days. That's exactly right. Back then, in the early 2000s, there were so many artifacts that had to do with auto tune. You would see a lot of severe notch filtering. There's a really interesting screenshot from Tom Elmhurst, who mixed the record, the 21 record for Adele, and he has a screenshot of his vocal EQ, and he's using a Waves Q10, I believe, or Q4. It doesn't matter. He's using he's got the narrowest Q on it, and he's taking out 18 dB at 3.1K. He's taking out 24K at 1.6, and then at 930 hertz taking out 24 dB. Something insane like that. At 3 different frequencies, taking out, in the narrowest Q, the most offensive frequencies. And if you listen to her voice on there, and I love Adele's voice, but there are some really piercing sounds. She ended up having to go in and have vocal surgery after that, but it sounds like her voice sounds kind of like a distortion box on it. But you should look for the Tom Elmhurst Sound on Sound article. It's online. Look at it for the Adele mix, and look at the EQ setting, and it's compensating for these, probably for things that had been auto-tuned. Not that Adele needs auto-tune, but it was probably compensating for certain things, for some anomalies that needed to be taken out. And that's called notch filtering when you do it at a really, really, at a very tight Q. To me, the best EQ for it in Pro Tools is the channel strip by Metric Halo. That has the tightest Q, and you can go minus 24 dB. I think there's some that'll go minus 30 dB, some plugins, but it's hard to get a filter to get super narrow and take out just the offensive thing. Sometimes you'll do some beat correction on drums, and you'll get, when the snare drum, for example, that has a ring on it, will go across the crossfade, we'll get a warble in it that have a pitch, and it'll be noticeable, especially when you compress a snare. So I would go in and surgically take out that pitch. CLA claims he never cuts any frequency, only adds. Oh, I'm sure. Most people are adders. Joe Barisi is an adder. Chris Loreggi, they call them boosters. I'm a booster too. I boost things that, but occasionally when you have weird anomalies, you have to use subtractive EQ. That's the best use of it. Frank asks, how would you use Dorian Flat 2 over a Dominant 7 Blues? Same kind of thing, right? If you, you can use it in the exact same way. But I don't know if that's the best use of it. I would use it probably when I'm going in the third bar into the fourth bar. That's probably the best place. So like something like that, right? So I did. That's that sound. So I did, So that's a spot to use it in the third bar. I think that would actually be a great I think that would be a great use of it. Anyways, okay, so that's it for today. Go back and watch the beginning if you guys haven't seen it. You're very welcome, Frank. I'll have a new instructional video out here for all of you. Probably later this evening, so look out for that. And leave your questions on flat 5, actually, in the stream or wherever Aaron tells you. Aaron can tell you where to leave it. You guys are the best. Thank you.